Hello, and welcome to Go Fund This, a podcast from Nerds Domain. In these episodes, we'll be talking to crowdfund project managers about their projects and what excites them. Come listen as we talk about the passion they have for their project.
Well, hi, and welcome. This is John Thompson, and today I'm actually here talking with
Jonathan G. Nelson from AEW Games.
Thank you so much for coming on.
That's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've mentioned your company really quick, so what is AdventureAWeek?
Yeah, so AdventureAWeek.com started, I'll give you the short version because the long version would take up your entire show, but the short version was we came from the angle of tabletop role-playing games from exactly the opposite direction as all other tabletop game publishers. We started kind of a little bit ahead of our times publishing stuff online where we basically wanted to have it so that everything could be accessed from a tablet, a laptop, or a phone during a game. So if a DM or GM had a game session going on, they didn't have to haul, 20, 30, 40 books with them to the session or have to dig through all that stuff. They could just click on hyperlinks. They could click on boxes to open and close windows and all that kind of stuff. So we started out initially just being a subscription service so people could get adventures and everything online. And Todd Gamble, who used to work for Wizards of the Coast, and he worked on the 3.5 core books. He worked on a ton of stuff. Forgotten Realms campaign setting. He was a cartographer for a lot of that. He was our cartographer and my co-partner when we started out the company. So he did all a lot of the maps, some of the artwork and stuff like that, the covers and graphic design, and I did all of the writing and the publishing as well as the web design. So we came in from a totally different angle, and then subscribers started wanting PDFs. And then people started wanting print, so we did Kickstarters, and then we finally, moved all the way through all the different mediums from, basically an online kind of like a D&D Beyond type thing, and then went to, virtual tabletops and to PDFs and then print books. So we kind of went about it backwards.
It's a wonderful tool to use. I've used it. I've actually been in a couple of your Kickstarters and backed it. So AdventureAWeek launched in December of 2010, or at least when I did some research, that's the date that I found.
Yeah, December of 2010 was when I first came up with the idea for AdventureAWeek, and Todd Gamble and I both live here in Snoqualmie, Washington, and so I called Todd up and we met up for coffee and basically came up with like what, kind of like giving birth to something, a creative, birth. So that's kind of like the birth of the idea. And then from that point on, we built the site and came up with our campaign setting and a lot of the adventures and worked on that until 2012, at which point we actually went live. We did beta testing up until 2012. So there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes before we officially launched. We wanted to kind of like get our roots, deeper in the ground. We didn't want to just dive in straight away without knowing what we were doing. So we wanted to make sure we were prepared.
Well, one of the things that I like to do for my show, for those of you who are listening that are fans of either AdventureAWeek or are fans of the Nerds Domain, we like to talk about when the company or book came out, so we can kind of talk about the pop culture history or the things or the environment that came out, because I feel like there's a lot of nostalgia involved in gaming for some of us, and it's a fun thing to me to kind of look at games, especially the history of the time period where they came. So in 2010, some of the events that happened that year, we have Conan O'Brien's Last Night Show, which was kind of an event for many people where a lot of people felt he had gotten snookered out of the job, and he went and started his own show at that point.
He deserved that role on the show.
Yeah.
I always loved Conan O'Brien. He was the wacky, crazy guy that you would want to like get stoned and watch late at night.
We have Matt Smith became the 11th Doctor that year. We've gone through 3 other Doctors since then.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, what was your favorite Doctor?
Oh man, don't get me started with that stuff. We'll be here all day.
I myself, I was a David Tennant fan, but Matt Smith started that year. Big events from that year was that the California's Proposition 8, which was a ballot initiative to prohibit same-sex marriage, passed by state voters in 2008, but it was overturned that year, so good on them for that.
Yeah, it's crazy that we even have to, even those dates are kind of sad. It's like, shouldn't this stuff have been figured out a long time ago?
Yeah, and it kind of gives you an idea that as much as we've come forward, and in a lot of ways, liberal policy has been set by California, and people kind of put their ear to the ground and pay attention to them, they still had trouble then. So, other things. Movies of 2010. And these were some big names. So, Iron Man 2, Toy Story 3, Despicable Me, and Inception came out that year.
Personally, I only saw the first two of those, and I have kids, so I saw the Toy Story 3, but I actually thought that was pretty hilarious. Iron Man 2, I thought was okay. Iron Man 1 was still so much better and still my favorite.
Absolutely. Iron Man 1 was such a classic introduction story.
Especially the music.
Yeah.
The music in that was fantastic.
And Tony Stark is definitely one of my favorite superheroes because he is so flawed. I love that character.
Yeah, me too.
So, now, music of 2010. This is kind of weird because this is, I don't know, I was shortly in elementary education, so these songs I unfortunately heard a lot of at school for some of them, or at least were in a playlist on Just Dance. But so we had Not Afraid by Eminem, Firework by Katy Perry, Forget You by CeeLo Green, and Baby by Justin Bieber.
The kids in the house here are primarily women, and they are into Katy Perry, so I've definitely heard that song about a million times, whether I wanted to or not.
Yeah, no, when I was in elementary education, the Firework and Baby and Forget You, which of course is the more radio-friendly edit of the name, I heard those songs so many times.
Yeah.
But leaving all that stuff behind and talking about AdventureAWeek, which came out that year, but more so about you, because one of the things I've found when I've talked to people involved in the game community, game producers, and game creators, they're always gamers first. And so I'd really like to know, Jonathan, what was it that got you into gaming?
Well, like a lot of people out there that have the aunt or uncle experience, my good friend, he was born 2 weeks apart from me, but our parents were so close. Him and I kind of grew up like brothers. His aunt and uncle one day showed up, and they were really eccentric and different. I thought, hey, these people are pretty cool. And I think we were about 8 years old, and they gave us the D&D Red Box, and along with a smattering of other small books, a set of dice, and character sheets. And we just thought, wow, this stuff is cool. We didn't understand a lot of it at that age, but we tried to, just tried to glean as much as we could from the books, and started making up stories as soon as we found out that, as soon as I saw there was a role of like a dungeon master, like, ooh, I get to, instead of just playing one character, I get to play like all these different NPCs and monsters and write stories and draw maps and all this. I'm like, that's what I want to do. I knew right away. Everybody else really wanted to play. So I'm like, okay, cool. This works out great. And yeah, that's how it all began for me.
So you've created your own world for gaming. You actually mentioned that with AdventureAWeek, you actually have a world, correct?
Yeah, we have a campaign setting. It's pretty basic as far as like we haven't fleshed out the entire world or anything like that. But what we did kind of was we wrote our A series, which is the first adventures we wrote for AdventureAWeek.com, and we created something called the Aventure campaign setting. And so in the world of Aventure, all of the A series adventures take place there, but we also provide ideas for, relocating them to your own homebrew setting or, Forgotten Realms or what have you. But yeah, we wrote from the ground up, or I wrote from the ground up, and created a lot of different content, mainly around a remote fishing village that we kind of think of as like a Russian Alaskan fishing village way up in the middle of nowhere it's called a small town called Rybalka. And it's this kind of point of contention or struggle that initiates all these various scenarios that transpire over the course of the adventures, which you could do just any one of the adventures, or you can tie them all together. And it stems from the Slavic Kingdom, which is kind of like Tsarist Russia, wanting to move in and expand their territory into what's called the Vik-Mordare Valley. And there's a culture there, there's a people called the Vik-Mordare, and they're kind of like a mashup of Native Americans and Vikings. Oh, cool. And they worship something called the ancestor spirit. It's a culmination of all of the spirits of their ancestors, the culmination of the wisdom and experience of all their ancestors, kind of meshed with and combined and embedded in nature. They had the chance to be more of an advanced civilization a long time ago, but found that each step they would take towards that had repercussions that would destroy the natural world. So they decided to stay they knew they could move in that direction, but they decided to stay kind of in what the Klavekians, or the people from the Klavik Kingdom, would call more barbarian or savages, or, primitive lifestyle. And so the Klavik Kingdom wants to expand. And at the same time, the Klavekians, some of the cultures, some of the tribes are raiders, not all of them, but some of them are raiders. And so they go down and they raid villages along in the Klavik Kingdom. So then the Klavekians say, well, we're not going to stand for this. We're going to go up there. But they mainly use it as an excuse to go attack this village and take it over, because there's a lucrative iron mine nearby. They can log a lot of the area. There's a lot of woodlands there that they can log, and there's a huge glacial lake that meanders for hundreds of miles called Serpent Lake, that they can move all of this stuff down the lake back down to the Klavik Kingdom. So it's very much a nature versus civilization struggle. A lot of the stuff I write is like that. So that's kind of our campaign setting focus, is the village of Rybalka and what's going on in the Vikmordare Valley with the Klavekians moving in, and then the Vikmordare tribes that already live there.
So, being a gamer and having created this world, if you could play anyone or be anyone in your world, where would you want to see yourself?
Oh, man, that's a hard decision, because the thing I like about being a dungeon master or a game master is being able to play all of the roles. I love being able to jump from character to character and take on a different accent, or different characteristics, and, even a different alignment. But I would say if I could just throw myself into a role right now, sure, I would jump into being Finn Starling, who's the proprietor of the Thirsty Serpent Tavern in Rybalka. He's also he's kind of a retired adventurer, but he's still pretty young, and he really wants to get back out there. But his father passed away and left him the tavern, and he feels obligated to continue to run it. And but he likes to talk with all the adventurers that come in and share stories and tell them about different things that come across, that come across his ears as he's running his tavern, wants to share ideas of different quests and things that they might be interested in.
So, also within the game creation and these things, kind of a parallel question to all this would be, in all this writing that you've done, in this world that you've created, or even within, AdventureAWeek itself, is there a specific thing that or contribution that in the past that you feel has really been a highlight for you? Yeah,
definitely. Like I was talking about in the A series, there were two adventures. Looking back, now that I've written all these different adventures and everything, looking back at some of my favorites, I definitely A04 and A05, which A04 was Forest for the Trees and A05 was Winterflower. Those were two that were part of that whole nature versus civilization, but it put the choices of what happens in the hands of the players, and it really does. Like, I know there's adventures like, here's a railroad adventure and here's more of an open world adventure, but still, in this open world adventure, if you do this, then that happens, and it's kind of an expected outcome. Like in this one, it's like there's all these kind of different outcomes that could occur based on the actions of the players, and it's not good and evil. It's just cause and effect. If you do this, then these things happen. If you do that, then these things happen. If you do these other two things, then something completely different happens. And it kind of, it makes you realize that in our natural world, little things that you do, like right now it's raining here, and up on the hill, the loggers have logged, clear cut all these huge areas out. And a lot of times people don't realize, okay, I'm clear cutting this huge area. And then this year, if we have more rain than we did in previous years, all of that rain is going to be coming down the mountainside, and it's going to turn to mud and it's, just a mess, and run into the rivers and cause flooding in the roadways. And some people lose their homes and all this kind of stuff. Our actions in this world, especially in this natural world, when we do something, there is a cause and effect involved. And I think those adventures really bring that into play, and it's not necessarily good and evil. It's just a cause and effect. I like to provide that. I like the players to feel like they had an actual effect on the environment or in the world, and it's not just let's say they do something and it affects it saves nature, but yet causes something where the village of Rybalka now is not going to have the income that they did have. Well, now all of a sudden the people that work in the village are going to be pissed off at those PCs, I don't know. And there's just some unique little tales in there. I mean, obviously going back, I'm like, oh, that's when I started writing. A lot of the writing, is not up to my standards now. And I'm like, oh, as an editor, I would have, edited this or changed that or what have you. But the core of the story is still there. I'm still proud of those. So that's definitely two of my favorites. My other favorite is C01 Allegoran's Gem, which was the first one in our C series, which is our classic series. And that's a series inspired by Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, David C. Sutherland III, and a lot of the people that made D&D what it is. And it's kind of going back to our roots and taking inspiration from some of those really hardcore old school D&D mod, AD&D first edition modules a lot of us used to play. And that one is really, a lot of people have told me that they really enjoy that one. It's one of those ones where you really probably want to roll up 2 characters so that when your first character dies, you can keep playing. But it's definitely challenging, and groups enjoy that one. It's definitely a thing where you can't be a one-man show in that one. You got to work as a group to overcome the challenges.
Just hearing about it, I'm like, man, I want to get back into the Dungeon Crawl Classics right now. So I know that with the content that you create and everything else, like when I've got to do some stuff for AdventureAWeek, you were working with the Pathfinder role-playing game. Recently, you've moved into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, putting out some great content for that. And I think that you were doing some stuff for Starfinder, and you recently announced, I think it was in this last year, that you're going to start producing content as well for Savage Worlds. Is that...
Yes.
So, big congratulations on that. One of the other podcasts that I get to participate in, which is called Seriously Let's Play, we're planning on in a couple of years doing an entire season dedicated to Savage World, so I'm definitely going to be keeping that in mind.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And it'd be cool, too, if a couple of the guys that work in on the Savage Worlds on helping me, with the conversions and building for that. And we're actually going to be doing some original stuff too that's just strictly Savage Worlds releases, and even in the Aventure campaign setting. It'd be cool to have one or two of those guys on the podcast with me. That'd be fun.
Oh, that'd be excellent. So this leads us pretty much to the topic at hand, the Kickstarters that are going on for AdventureAWeek. Now, in past, you've had several successful Kickstarters, not in any particular order. The Adventure Bestiary, Into the Wintry Gale, Snow White, Rise of the Drow, The Occult Secrets of the Underworld, and many dungeon tomes, which really, for me, looking at some of the numbers or anything else, the mini dungeon tomes really skyrocketed and did extremely well from what I saw. It's $165,000 with over 3,000 backers. That is an amazing total right there.
Yeah, the mini dungeon tome was very, very popular, more popular than we even realized it would be. And even after that, like the final number after backer kit was just crazy. I think there was like over 3,800 backers total, and I think it raised like $210,000.
Oh, that's amazing.
It raised enough that recently that in Seattle, multiple pallets, like more pallets than I've ever seen delivered for us. We're arriving in the bottom of Mox Boarding House / Card Kingdom, this awesome game shop in Seattle that if anyone's out in the Seattle area, I highly recommend going and check out Mox Boarding House. But the guys there, the folks there helped me fulfill Kickstarter just because I can't do it out of my garage or my parents' garage anymore. It's just, I don't think my mom would be cool with me cruising over there and having a giant loading truck, filling up her whole garage with pallets of books anyway. So, so that one just, that blew us away. That was incredible. Mm-hmm. And with that one too, just like anything, as we progressed, we're like, okay, we've burnt through almost all of our stretch goals we had planned. We didn't plan for it to go this far. So we had to come up with more and more and more and keep expanding it. And we're really happy with the final book because it's pretty massive. And I think it really is one of the books that we've produced where I feel like, because a lot of times when you produce a book, by the time you actually get it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of seeing this thing. I need to put it on the shelf and not look at it for a couple of years. Because all you've been doing is looking at it. All you've been doing is working on it and editing it and, tweaking things and fixing this and fixing that. And inevitably, there's always a few things that slip by you in the final book anyway that you'll notice. And you're like, oh, dang it, I can't believe we did, this typo is in there or what have you. But this is one of those books where I felt like as soon as I got it, I'm like, I can already crack this open at my game table. And I'm actually going to be using it in my own games because it's so versatile. You've got over 130 adventures, and one book is Pathfinder, the other is 5th edition. Mm-hmm. And whatever system you're playing, you just, you could just bust out and flip to a page of appropriate levels. They're all sorted by levels, so you can flip through, find one that works, throw a little plot hook in there, and have the PCs go on an adventure. Whether you didn't write something that night, whether they went and did something you didn't expect, or if you just want to do like a one-off, like you just have some friends over for the holidays and you don't usually see them and you just want to have a little game session. Maybe it's just, 2-3 hours, what have you, and call it good. So yeah, I think we're really proud of that one. And I think it's going to be one of that people are going to get a lot of use out of.
As far as products like that go, I mean, if you're running a world, sandboxing isn't really that great a thing. I mean, it's hard to come up with constant content, and ever so often you need that extra little kick to kind of push you and your story along, or come up with something just to tide you over until the creative juices keep going. But
Exactly.
I myself, the two that I really enjoyed, I got in on Rise of the Drow, which I'm secretly a Drow fanboy, and I was just like, I've always been one of those people that if it came out and it looked like it was quality and it was about the Drow, I was going to hop in on it, because I don't know, I like kind of the dark fantasy sort of stuff. But then you also had the Snow White one, which I love, and I got in hardback, and it's upstairs on my game shelf, and I really loved that Kickstarter.
Yeah, both those Kickstarters are really cool. Very different Kickstarters, but both of them produced some pretty cool hardcover books. Rise of the Drow is by far our best-selling book ever. Mini Dungeon Tome might surpass it. We'll see. But Rise of the Drow is so popular that it's the one that I'm getting emails or Facebook Messenger. There's people constantly asking me, when are you guys doing the Rise of the Drow Collector's Edition, which we actually are doing really soon. But people are constantly asking about that one. When are you doing the Rise of the Drow Collector's Edition? And we want it for a 5th edition, because what we're doing is we're basically taking all of the books. Because originally, I don't know if you remember, originally Rise of the Drow was a trilogy. It was 3 smaller books, and we put it into a hardcover and then expanded it. And we added all these special guest authors and expanded sections and new maps and all of it.
Yeah.
Beautiful cover art. But then in the Kickstarter, we also came out with a prologue and an epilogue and the player's guide and all this additional content. And so what we're doing is basically we've been working actually for years behind the scenes on taking all of that content and binding it all together and fixing some things, fleshing out some other things, adding some special sections here and there, especially to incorporate the new Underworlds races.
Awesome. Now that's super exciting to hear.
But yeah, we're going to redo all of it. We're going to put it in this massive. I mean, this book is going to be huge. It's going to be one of those books that if you threw it, someone could possibly kill them. But we're going to be doing a huge Kickstarter early 2019 for that, and it's going to have all of that content in one book, and all new maps by Tommy Salama, all new artwork. We've been working extensively on the editing, and like I said, it's going to be for Pathfinder or 5th edition, so you can get whichever one you want. And it's all going to be in a collector's edition cover wrap that will be very unique and a limited print. So basically, we're going to print a certain amount, and the people that buy those, you get them, you throw on your bookshelf, just like the one you have right now. That there are only 650 of those ever made, so don't lose that book, because I only have one copy myself here, and it's actually slightly damaged just because it's been tossed around a little bit. But there's only 650 of those ever made, and with this Kickstarter, we're going to do the same thing, a limited print. And then if we ever go back to reprint it, we'll do probably without the collector's edition cover and make it a little different. So the people that have the limited edition will be like, yes, I have that custom, that special release version, And then you're talking about Snow White, and Snow White was a unique one in that we worked really, really hard on that one. That one didn't raise a lot. We put in more time and money, way beyond what we had raised for it, because we wanted to really make it special. And I'm sure you saw the cartography in that one is just phenomenal. Tommy Salama did all that isometric cartography. And that one was nominated for, I think 7, 8, or 9 different awards at Gen Con that year, at the Ennies and the Indie Groundbreaker Awards.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is it didn't win a single one, but we thought it was pretty cool that the judges all caught that caught their eye. That book caught their eye for sure. And we're happy that at least, the people that needed to get the props got it for that one. Like Tommy Salama, there was a nomination for best cartography, nomination for best art, best writing, which Steve Neardley did a lot of it. It was me, Steven, Will Myers. We're really proud of those. Those are 2 books that we are very, very proud of.
Well, and this, of course, brings us to the big topic at hand, and that is the Adventure Omnibus. Yeah.
So the Adventure Omnibus Kickstarter is running right now. The past few Kickstarters we did were both dual, Pathfinder and 5th edition. This one's just Pathfinder, and there's a reason why. It's kind of we want to take a snapshot of the past. We want to pay homage to our roots and where we came from, because the industry's changing. Now you've got D&D 5th edition, and then Paizo announced they're going to be coming out with the Pathfinder 2nd edition, which some people are happy about and some people are not so happy about. And our plan is to continue to produce stuff for first edition. I don't know if we're going to produce stuff for second edition yet, but we wanted to go back and take kind of like our roots, and that's the Pathfinder first edition stuff that set us on this path, and get a snapshot in time of all those adventures from the A, B, and C series, and then put them into limited edition collector's edition books, each with a custom cover art wrap, and basically have kind of like the final installment where if you get these, you basically would have 2 volumes of the A series, a volume for the B series, and a volume for the C series on your bookshelf. And the number of pages is crazy. I actually have to double check on this. Let's see here. The A series, those two hardcover volumes would number over 1,200 pages, and that's 26 adventures totaling over 1,200 pages. The B series is 24 adventures totaling over 700 pages, and the C series is 7 adventures totaling over 300 pages. So you're looking at well over 2,000 pages just right there in this Kickstarter. So if you're listening to this and you're a fan of Pathfinder, check out Adventure Omnibus on Kickstarter and take a look at what you get. The cool thing with this too is there's stretch goals, and if it doesn't matter if you're at the $9 level, you get all of the stretch goals unlocked, and there's some really crazy stuff. Like we've unlocked Wrath of the Jotun, the 200-page mega adventure from Into the Wintry Gale. You just get it just by being a backer, even at $9 level, you get that free. And every stretch goal we unlocks another PDF adventure that's not part of the A, B, and C series, but that you'll get at the end of it. And you can even get a skull. There's a skull that we're Off-World Designs named it a Lich t-shirt or whatever. But we have a t-shirt that has this crazy skull with D20s in its eyes and an eyeball in its mouth, and a gem on its forehead. It's all etched and crazy looking. And you can get that on a t-shirt from Off-World Designs, who does all the t-shirts like for Gen Con and what have you. You can get that at cost if you're a backer on the Kickstarter. So you'll get a code to buy the shirt just at cost, along with all these other PDFs we're going to be unlocking. So the Kickstarter took off straight out of the gate like really crazy, and then now it's kind of slowed down a little bit, which is pretty typical, especially with a Kickstarter like a Pathfinder First Edition Kickstarter, because a lot of people have, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but people move to different game systems. I've jumped around as well. I like to play different game systems. So a lot of people have moved off the fifth edition, or they're playtesting second edition Pathfinder. But if you're a real hardcore first edition Pathfinder fan, or a fan of AdventureAWeek.com and Adventure, check it out and back us, even at just at the $9 level, to get a ton of free PDFs.
And I do want to toss out for our listeners that this one, your Kickstarter is actually already funded, so you've already met the goal. And so getting in on this is also, honestly, a great investment, because this is not a will it fund. This is what am I going to get? Yeah, and you can also check our track record. I mean, take a look back, and going back at Kickstarter, how many have they run? If they've never run one, it doesn't mean that you have to be fearful of getting involved, but you have to understand that you might not want to get involved at like the $300 level, because they may disappear, and I've had that happen, Yeah. But take a look at their track record, and then go back through the comments on previous Kickstarters and see what people are saying. If people look pretty happy and they're like, "Man, I love you guys. I'm backing everything coming up. You did a great job," then okay, well, this is safe. But if you see like, I still haven't got this, add-on, and it's been 4 years, then it's probably a safe bet to not back that particular Kickstarter. But I like to say that, put that out there, because I always those people kind of sitting on the fence, like, this Kickstarter thing looks really cool, and I kind of been watching it, but do I really want to put my money out and have it just, disappear to some dude that goes to Zimbabwe with my money or what have you? That definitely won't happen. Y'all do have an amazing track record, and honestly, I'm excited for this. And also, I'm really excited to hear about some of the other ones y'all got coming down the pipe. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you want me to reveal any other secrets, I've got a few up my sleeve that we haven't told anyone else, that I could throw out some little tidbits here and there. Oh. if you want something.
Hey, feel free. I will gladly welcome it.
Okay, cool. So we have something. I won't reveal too much about it, but I'll just say, did you play first edition at all, or second edition AD&D?
Yes, I did. AD&D, specifically Grayhawk, that world. That was my intro into role playing.
That's awesome, because the stuff that inspired the mini dungeon tome was from a Grayhawk. I think it was a Grayhawk box set from back in the day, so that's really cool. So are you familiar with the Dungeoneer Survival Guide?
Yes.
Okay, so the Dungeoneer Survival Guide was written by Douglas Niles, and I'm sure you're familiar with Douglas Niles. He's also written a lot of fantasy novels over the years. Mm-hmm. Well, we recruited Douglas Niles and also Stephen Yeardley, who is usually my co-author in pretty much everything we do. He was co-author with me on Rise of the Drow. And Thilo Graf, who is also in Zeitgeist out of Germany. And we are creating essentially the Dungeoneer's survival guide for the new era of gaming.
Oh, wow.
And it's called The Survivalist Guide to Spelunking. And this book, we've been working on for quite a while. It's going to be a while before it actually hits Kickstarter, but we've been working on essentially the text, the writing, and the editing for quite a while now. Douglas Niles, we recruited him. I was so stoked that he joined the team. He already finished all his parts. Now Stephen and Thilo are just kind of finishing up their sections, and then we're going to put the finishing touches on it and then do another editing pass. And then after that, it's about raising funds to actually make it happen and get all, some really cool artwork and maps and get it all into a book. So that's one thing that's coming down the pipelines. And it's also going to kind of complete our Underworld theme of then after that, think of it, after we do the Rise of the Drow and that one, we'll have Rise of the Drow, Survivalist Guide to Spelunking. So you've got all your rules and anything else you need for Underworld exploration. We've got Underworld races and classes and Occult Secrets of the Underworld. So you've got all these books that essentially are the collection you need for, like the only collection you'll need for Underworld and Underdark adventuring. So
nice.
That's going to be a big deal. We're really excited about that. And then another secret, I can't talk a lot about this one, but all I have to say is that we worked out a deal with Stefan from Dwarf Forge. And so we're doing something along those lines, and that's all I can say.
Now that's a big tease because Dwarf Forge, they set the precedent. I'm a terrain guy. I am. I don't get to use it enough, but I have about 3 cabinets upstairs filled with terrain from different companies. But Dwarf Forge has set the level of quality, the best of the best. People rave about it. They even made a movie about the guy. I mean, goodness.
I know.
So
I think Stefan was the one. We're really excited to be working with them. And also I got to test out a lot of cool Dwarven Forge stuff. Some Dwarvenite in the mail it was probably about a year and a half ago, and that's where we got started. So that's all I can say.
Well, that's awesome, and thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course.
Well, excellent. Well, guys, I think that's going to probably wrap our show for now, and I want to thank you so much again, Jonathan Nelson from AdventureAWeek, for coming on the show with us.
Hey, thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me ramble.
Oh, no problem. All right, guys. We'll talk to y'all later.
And that'll do us tonight for Go Fund This, a podcast from Nerds Domain. Remember, you can email us at nerdsdomain@gmail.com or find us on facebook.com/nerdsdomain, on Twitter @nerdsdomain, or over at our site at nerdsdom.com. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. You can head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. We want to thank Jarby McCoy for our music. Don't forget, you can support us at patreon.com/nerdsdomain and check out our shirts at slashloot.com.